Welcome to Penn Jen's Inkwell podcast. My name is Jen Waters. I hope you enjoy my stories. Hoops Time is the inspirational basketball story that I adapted from my father's love of basketball, Norman John Waters, although everyone calls him John. From the time I was a child, I was raised on basketball. My dad loved Hoosiers. We saw that film over and over and over. He wanted me to play on a basketball team, and most people wouldn't realize this, but to this day, I'm very good at foul shots because I would play with him in my parents' driveway at the basketball hoop sometimes. But I liked music and writing better. However, I could probably referee a game. My dad holds the individual record at Lehigh University for free throws made in a single game. 19 free throws when Lehigh University played Muhlenberg College on February 4th, 1970. He was also one of Lehigh University's 1,000-point scorers, scoring 1,099 points from 1969 to 1971. On February 13th, 1971, he scored his 1,000th point. He loved to display his high school and college basketball trophies. So since I wasn't pursuing basketball, my dad got my brother Andy, who is 3 years younger than I am, interested in basketball. My brother played in the St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church Middle School Basketball League, and my dad coached the team, even though our family attended Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in Hershey. I was like my dad's assistant coach some of the time. I actually had my own whistle. Then, when my brother got to Hershey High School basketball team, he played all 4 years, and he was team captain his senior year of high school. My brother had a Michael Jordan poster on his bedroom door growing up, and when Michael Jordan came to visit Hershey for the Milton Hershey High School track and field events, it was a really big deal when we met him and got his autograph. Years later, when I ran into Michael Jordan at Georgia Brown's restaurant near the White House in Washington, D.C., I got out my phone to call my brother and told him I just bumped into Michael Jordan. And my brother was freaking out. My dad actually played with Dr. J, Julius Erving, in college. We used to sit at the dinner table and my dad would review basketball plays with my brother on a clipboard. I could probably even coach a game, if someone was in need of a coach. When I was in the 9th grade, my dad tore his Achilles heel so he could never play basketball again, because it was too hard to stop and start on an injured heel and you could possibly rip it for good. And then you wouldn't be able to walk. So the core of this story is inspired by my dad, but most of the events are fictionalized to create a series. This story is scored to Hoops Time, original music by Eric Baines, meant to be reminiscent of SportsCenter on ESPN. So here's Hoops Time. I hope it's a slam dunk. Johnny B. Good drives in for 2 points against Washington and Lee. The Lehigh College school newspaper read, the Washington and Lee Generals fell to the Lehigh Mountain Eagles by a score of 81-75 Saturday night at Grace Hall. Number 11, Johnny B. Good was a business student at Lehigh College on basketball scholarship. He really didn't know much other than basketball. It was his first love, his only love. Johnny, it was a great game. Nancy Jones called to him. Her father, Robert Jones, the president of Lehigh College Board of Trustees, ran the school. An intellectual pursuing a graduate degree in education, Nancy had had a crush on Johnny since their freshman year, and always tried to get his attention. She even tried out as a cheerleader but didn't make the team because she had no coordination. Behind the scenes, Nancy asked her father to be supportive of Johnny. Trying to be supportive of his adored only child, he arranged for a full basketball scholarship to Lehigh College. When people weren't looking, her father made sure Johnny passed the tougher courses like calculus. A bit on the unethical side, Nancy had even been trying to get her father to give Johnny a new car from the college's sponsors. I just wish Johnny would notice me, Nancy sighed, sitting in the bleachers at a game. From a distance, she could see his mother waving pom-poms. Much like he did Nancy, Johnny took his mom for granted, and he hardly acknowledged her support. Most people were sure that Johnny was angry at his mother for quite some time ago divorcing his now deceased father. "Now, we all don't have to concentrate on rebounding and get down court," he told the press after the game. "When you're a winner, the spirit is really great. When I came to the varsity, I had to learn to make stronger moves to the basket and shoot over people. With several teammates gone, I have to score more out of necessity. The loss of experience has also caused me to take on more responsibility." A loner, Johnny waved and smiled at Nancy and kept talking to the media. After the game, he spent hours on end strategizing with his teammates and coaches for the next game, watching team videos and drawing out defense plays. "Delaware, Ryder, and Lafayette will be the toughest teams, although everyone will be out to beat us," he said to the team. "We are ahead so far this season, and the guys want to win." Although Johnny liked to travel to away games, he enjoyed the home games the most because they always had the most fans. For example, they scheduled an away game against Ryder the day after finals. Everyone was tired and worn out from studying. No one felt like playing, but we had to go. He said in another interview, "Because our court is so different, we have a distinct home court advantage. In a few years, it will almost be impossible to beat Lehigh at home." Nancy was always the first one to show up at the away games, taking pictures and waving the orange and blue team flag. Even when Johnny's mother didn't show up for the away games, rain, sleet, hail, or snow, Nancy drove her dilapidated Toyota to every game and made sure Johnny knew it. "Go, Johnny, go! Johnny, you better be good!" she cheered, waving the orange and blue pom-poms. On February 4th, 1970, as the team captain and center player, Johnny earned the free throw record for 19 foul shots in one game while playing Muhlenberg University. He was also one of Lehigh College's 1,000-point scorers, scoring 1,099 points from 1969 to 1971. On February 13th, 1971, he scored his 1,000th point. "I didn't realize I was nearing the 1,000-point mark until late December when Coach Heckman informed me," he said to the media on the court after the game. "It was nice to reach such a plateau, but it's no big thing for me." "He was tremendous out there on defense during the Muhlenberg game," Coach Heckman told the press. "John is the first one on the court at practice and one of the last to leave. He gives 100% all the time." "Congratulations, Johnny, 1,000 points!" Nancy cheered as she hung the banner for him across the Lehigh College basketball court. Johnny nodded, unimpressed by Nancy's generous gesture. "Maybe I should just give up," Nancy said, sliding down the concrete gym wall in tears. "He's so full of himself and not at all interested in me." After graduating from college, Johnny went to the Philadelphia Trojans in the National Basketball Association's first-round pick. "He's so arrogant," Nancy said, watching him on the TV news as he sprayed champagne on his new coach. "He never appreciated anything my dad did for him." Everything went fine for Johnny in the NBA, or so it seemed, until Johnny threw the ball out of bounds in overtime during a tie in the playoffs of the first season. As he threw the ball out of bounds, he tore his Achilles heel and had emergency surgery to repair it. Now an assistant professor at Lehigh College, Nancy cried a bucket of tears from her apartment couch, watching the news report about Johnny. Despite everything, she still loved him. When the phone rang, she answered it, hoping it was Johnny. "Nancy, get over Johnny," her father said on the phone. "He's only using you." "Dad, I have to go. I'm listening to the news," Nancy said, hanging up the phone. "Although the surgery repaired Johnny B. Good's heel, and he is able to walk, he will never be able to play basketball again," the TV sports reporter said on the 6 o'clock news. "If he were to run or turn wrong on his heel, he might damage the tendon for good and never be able to repair it. His days as an NBA player are finished in an early retirement." At first, Johnny thought he might try to be an on-air sportscaster, but he didn't have a broadcast journalism background and would have to take an unpaid internship to start the different career. "You want me to work for free as an intern?" Johnny said to the local news station's manager. "Don't you know who I am? I have the foul shot record at Lehigh College." "This is journalism, Johnny, not basketball," the station manager said. "Grow up." After a failed attempt at working as a sportscaster, Johnny tried teaching business and history classes at a local community college. "This is so boring," Johnny said, handing out the graded term papers to his bewildered students. "I probably failed too many of you, but you aren't taking my class seriously anyhow. Don't you know who I am? You should be honored to have me as a professor." After he erupted at the students, the college fired him without severance pay. "What am I going to do now?" Johnny said, looking at his collection of trophies and newspaper articles from his days at Lehigh College. As a last resort, when Johnny was just about to move home with his mother, Robert Jones, the president of Lehigh College Board of Trustees, called. "Do you want to coach basketball for Lehigh College, Johnny?" President Jones asked. "Our coach has suddenly become ill with cancer, and many of the players have already quit for the season as well. Due to lack of experience, the assistant coach is not up for the job. This was Nancy's idea. Even if it's only for a season until we can find a permanent basketball coach, it might work out for both of us." "Well, I might have to think about it for a while," Johnny said, looking at his old jersey. "Johnny, I'm sorry for your sports injury and wish you had a long career in the NBA, but coaching the Lehigh College team seems to be a perfect fit." After a moment of silence, Johnny agreed to take the job. "Yes, President Jones, I believe you're right," Johnny said, grabbing his stopwatch and starting to sketch out defense plays for the team. As Johnny arrived to practice on the first day, he stared at the trophies and plaques in the glass case outside the Lehigh College basketball gym, wondering who would break his records. "How am I supposed to train a team to break my own records?" he said, kicking the wall. "I worked so hard." When the team showed up late in their old sneakers and suits, he threw his clipboard against the wall and left for the local bar. "This isn't worth my time," he yelled at the freshmen that had never even heard of him. The next morning, when he dragged himself into the gym for practice, he found Nancy standing in the corner of the gym, shaking her head. In spite of all her efforts to get him a job, Johnny was about to blow it again. In front of Nancy, he lectured the team on the rigorous training they would have to endure to become champions. "I'm not training losers," he yelled. "If you are going to play for me, you are going to win, or I am not coaching the team. I dare anyone to try to break my foul shot record as though any of you are good enough. I had an NBA career and wish I would have it back. But since I ripped my Achilles heel, I am stuck with you, or you're stuck with me. Either way, so you might as well make the best of it." The team sat in silence, staring at Nancy, knowing that she was their only hope. Since she was trusted and liked by the college staff, Johnny would surely listen to her. "Before class in the morning, you will run sprints," he chided. "Then after class in the evening, you practice dribbling, passing, shooting, and dunking. You will spend hours studying offensive and defensive strategies and recruiting other college students for the missing positions that the team needs. No one is immune from being cut." Nancy rolled her eyes and headed off to her father's office, asking for mercy for Johnny again. If she could only find a way to explain to Johnny that he wasn't God, not even a basketball god, then maybe Johnny could succeed for the first time in his life. "Dad, try to give him another chance," Nancy said. "Sooner or later, the goodness in him is going to surface. He's a champion on the court. He just has to be a champion in real life." When Lehigh College basketball team faced their first season game, Johnny boarded the students in the bus, listening to his old team, the NBA Philadelphia Trojans game on the radio. "Turn off the radio," he said to the bus driver. "I just don't want to hear it." After yelling at his half-freak college team through the entire basketball game, Johnny finally gave up. In the last minutes of the game, he got himself thrown out on a technical foul for cursing at the referee. "This team stinks," Johnny said. "I don't want to be their coach." The team lost by 25 points and missed almost every foul shot. Maybe Johnny could just realize that he could have made them better, Nancy said to herself as the buzzer rang. I think he made them even worse. Despite all his stupid behavior, Nancy still loved Johnny. The next night after practice, she stopped by Johnny's home to boost his confidence. I asked my father to give you the benefit of the doubt, Nancy said to Johnny as he sighed. The season is just starting and the team can only get better. If you could only believe that you and your team are good enough, then you just might be. Championship awaits you, and all of Lehigh wants you to win, especially me. There is no way Lehigh can develop a good team if the current academic and financial trends continue, he said to Nancy. Grace Hall, with his handful of fans, does not psych me at all. If anything, I get de-psyched. It was just not built for basketball. After last year's winning streak with the old coach, people began to expect too much from Lehigh. Now, since we started to lose, people will stop coming to games. It's hard to play without support. But Johnny, I've been supportive, Nancy said. I've been supportive of you for years. You're going to have to fight to be a real champion, on and off the court. This is what brings meaning to winning any basketball game. Why don't you just try to be friends with the players on the team instead of bullying them? Maybe then they'll start winning. Maybe you should try coaching the team, he said to Nancy. Nancy cried walking to her car, thinking that Johnny would never change. As the autumn rolled into winter and Johnny grew into his role as coach, Johnny started to realize that Nancy was right. He began to treat the team with more respect, trained them harder, and consulted them on decisions. Nancy's advice kept rolling through his head. If you could only believe that you and your team are good enough, then you just might be. If you could only believe that you and your team are good enough, then you just might be. I guess I got a second chance, Johnny said to Nancy one day after practice, grabbing her and kissing her. And it was all because of you. Little by little, the team got better, and so did Johnny at coaching. By the spring, Lehigh College had its most successful basketball team ever. Even though no one on the team broke Johnny's foul shot record, it became the goal of his players during each game. Everyone sat on the edge of their seats during the basketball games to see who would finally break Johnny's record. I would have never been able to do any of this without you, Nancy, Johnny said to her. Of course, many months later, even though President Jones protested, Johnny won big when Nancy agreed to marry him. He became a winner for the rest of his life, knowing that the game was not just about him, but he had to be a team player, and he and Nancy made a good team. This has been Penn Jen's Inkwell Podcast. I wrote and performed all the original stories in the podcast. This podcast is produced by Eric Baines, who scored all the stories and poems in the series to original and public domain music. The podcast is associated with my blog of the same name, Penn Jen's Inkwell, which can be found on my website, jenwaters.com.